Well, I've talked a lot about thinking and power. What all this leads to, really, if you'll remember the diagram from our material side and our spiritual side, is that a person who has a stricken or sick psyche is a person who is thinking improperly or illogically, and over a period of time their psyche, which is our feelings, our persona, our thinking about things and so forth, our sensitivity to the world, our viewpoint, our approach, our attitude, our paradigm, all these things fall within the realm of what a psyche is. When our psyche's got to the point where it's sick, that means a person who has continually, through reinforced negative thinking, is creating illness in the psyche. Okay? That has to be changed. And that's not real simple, but it's quite possible. If a person has found themselves in a particular point in life where there's been so much reinforced negative thinking year after year, even though it might be slight, it just builds up. It gets reinforced. The psyche then, and let's think of the psyche then as really our viewpoint of the world, our approach to life, how we view the world. At that point, our psyche then becomes ill, which means that the psyche just has a negative or sick sort of viewpoint of life. It can no longer think healthy, happy, positive, lively, lovely. It's not capable of the beautiful thought, of the positive thought. It cannot create a happy future for itself because it is convinced that life is negative, life is not good. Well, we have to do something about that, though, because the negative, here's what happens. When we go about fixing a stricken psyche, we'll call it stricken or ill psyche, if we find ourselves in that position or someone else, how do we fix it? How do we cure a stricken psyche? Well, to begin with, to refer back to our diagram of the material and the spiritual, let's be reminded of one thing, how the mechanism works. The conscious mind gathers the information. It very quickly then checks with the subconscious mind to see what data we have on that. The subconscious mind is the computer, the motor, how we do things, our working machinery that helps us create our logic. The subconscious mind then is a storehouse, the memory block of all of our experiences that we have in our material life. So by virtue of that, it develops its own will, its own attitudes, emotions, and feelings about, not feelings, but attitudes about things. It has knee-jerk response. It's your inventory of data on stuff. So a thought comes in, say someone comes up to you and says, would you like to donate $50 to this worthy cause here? We're going to save this special tree that grows out in the forest. And maybe you have an attitude about trees or whatever. That attitude comes forward and your subconscious responds. If you have a very negative attitude about a lot of things, your overall will or your overall subconscious reaction to things becomes very negative. If you've reached a point where you view the world negatively, then your subconscious reacts to everything that way, and every time you're presented with new information or something in life to confront, you're going to react negatively. Of course, you won't think so. That's just who you are. But to the outside world, it will be easy to spot you. Well, when your psyche becomes stricken, the problem is that we can start to change how we feel about things and our attitude about life and our psyche. We can, but the problem is your subconscious is going to have to want to play a part in that all the time. So we have to stop that. We have to learn to curb the constant negative attitude of our own subconscious, which we've programmed over the years all the time. See, that's a result of constant worrying and negative thinking all the time. It builds up this power. Power thinking becomes negative. The consciousness of the stricken psyche must start to control the subconscious until the subconscious acknowledges the way of thinking of the consciousness as a knowledgeable fact. That means we've got to persuade, or we have to reprogram the subconscious somehow. And we're going to have to find a way of doing that. Because the subconscious ultimately dictates the feelings of the psyche. And we've got to make the psyche healthy by reprogramming the subconscious. And that's not real simple. And in fact, it's kind of difficult because every time we try to think in a more positive fashion or in a happier fashion, a happier thought, the subconscious is going to send out all of its negative thoughts. After all, it's just loaded with them. So every time you would try to daydream or, try to have a positive approach to something, your subconscious is going to beat it down. Now, if you've ever talked to someone who basically has a negative view of life or just isn't getting anywhere, it's exactly what you find, isn't it? If you know someone, exactly what you find, isn't it? If you know someone and you're trying to encourage them maybe to do something in life or start a new career, say for instance, and you're explaining to them, oh, you're going to be good at it, you're qualified at this, why don't you sign up and take a course in that, learn something about it, and you can better yourself. And they're sitting there going, I don't know, well, I don't have the money for the class, and well, I don't have a way to get there, my car doesn't work very good, and well, a friend of mine took that class and they didn't do very good. What's happening here? Every time you try to suggest a positive thought to change their view of their life, that built-up view that's in their psyche, what's happening? The subconscious keeps emerging with a whiny negative attitude why they can't do it. So we have to break through to this person somehow. We have to break through and start reprogramming them with positive thoughts until the subconscious starts getting some new programming, catches on, finally dumps or gets rid of all of its negative attitudes towards everything. We have to convince this person or teach this person about the power of themselves. They have to learn to find that self-reliance and the confidence. You cannot do it for them. You can lead them along with logic, with clarity of thought, and you can explain to them how it's possible. Another problem is that people generally, when they become negative, they think it's insurmountable. They think their problem is so big that there's just no way to fix it. If you're trying to suggest to this person that they start a new career or whatever, and they have 30 minutes of reasons why it isn't going to work, I haven't got the money, oh, I probably couldn't get a job anyway, or it's too far to drive, or I don't have Wednesday nights free. They got all these reasons why they can't do this thing, right? Well, they just can't get a positive thought together. You got to find some way to get this person to want to start thinking positive about putting themselves together. Well, there's one thing you can suggest to them, and this works. If you are a person who's not too far gone, where you can actually get the will together to try to change the way you think, suggest to them that they daydream. The best neutral positive thinking is a daydream. Now, a daydream, this is what I mean by a daydream. A daydream is where you just sit down and focus on some fantasy or some positive thing. Allow yourself to get lost in the daydream. And this is the kind of daydream where everything goes your own way. Where you just lead these people in and explain to them they need to daydream about a wonderful life, beautiful things, love, a great fantasy is something that they really enjoy. And what happens here when that starts doing that? Well, this person will experience something a little bit different, won't they? They'll start catching on to the idea that things can go well for them. They'll at least start enforcing the thought idea that they can't have a positive thought. It might even be surprising to some people who aren't used to doing that. Another thing about the daydream should always be in the present tense. And by that I mean, don't daydream about what may be someday. If you have the kind of daydream where you're wishing that, gee, maybe in 3 or 4 years I could take that class, or maybe someday I could get the money together to do that, what's happening? The subconscious is creeping in and creating that negativity. Because they're not looking at it as something positive they could really do, they're turning this daydream into just one more negative approach. So the daydream is always in the present tense. It's right now. I am doing this. I am feeling good. I am happy. I am strong. I am going to class. I can do this. Keep everything in the present tense. I am thinking positive about this course. I'm going to better myself. Look at things that you're going to do right now on the spot, because that way you keep the subconscious from negatively knocking down what's going on. If you think in this future wish mode way, the subconscious will keep coming back with a negative solution or reason why you can't do something. So don't do that. Keep your daydream in the present tense. Remember, logic is built on certainty, not illogical thinking. Now, certainty is the ability to think clearly about something right now and build power in it, isn't it? We talked about how to develop power of your thinking. So if you're correcting a stricken or ill psyche, daydreaming is a good way of doing it. Keep it in the present tense and encourage or learn how to develop positive thinking. what will happen is, as you continue the daydreaming, and as you continue the fantasy about right now how good things are, how swell you are, pretty soon what happens is your subconscious starts catching on. It starts slowly getting reprogrammed. It starts slowly learning that it can handle positive thoughts, and there'll be kind of a breakthrough slowly with the individual where they'll find kind of a light, at the end of the tunnel. And they'll start saying, well, I guess it wasn't quite so bad. And if they keep trying to reaffirm positive affirmations of themselves and start hanging out with different people, get around positive people, get around successful people, get around people who have strong force of mind, change their friends, their environment, and so forth, their world will change. And it can happen very fast. Sometimes it can happen within days with people that really don't have a big problem. Some people may take several months. Some people may not have as big a problem as they thought. Maybe they're just lonely. All they really need is a new relationship or something. They just perk right up. We've all seen people that suddenly we see them and boy, how they've changed. They just seem to be all perky and alive. Might have only been one or two events in their life that were really holding them back. Okay, in Billy's book on the psyche, he has a couple of things in there that are kind of interesting. One are the 3 golden rules of positive thinking, and another that he called the 10 laws of health or something. There's like the 10 ideas of good spiritual health. I thought these would be interesting, and so I'm going to go over them with you and explain to you how he wrote them out. The 3 golden rules of positive thinking. If the 3 golden rules, by the way, if you stick to these 3 golden rules, Billy says you can expect results right away, perhaps with your problems within 3 to 7 days in average cases. If you don't really have too many difficulties, maybe just a few minutes or an hour of just thinking like this, and you'll perk right up. If you got a lot of serious problems, you may have to really stick to these things for several months. One is the first golden rule is what I was just going over, which is the daydreaming. Get a good daydream that allows fantasies and imagination, building castles in the sky, whatever it is. Learn to daydream well and develop good role models for yourself. Create pleasure in your life. Daydream that things right now are going well for you. See yourself as having a great time, a beautiful romance, a beautiful relationship. There's love in your life. Imagine these things that happen because you're starting to enforce the fact, the idea that this can be you, that this is you, that all you really need is forceful thinking, strong will. As you think, so you shall be. Okay? You'll find right away that it gives you kind of lift in your emotions and you feel a little more lighthearted when you get the weight of negative thinking off of you. Focus on positive daydreaming, focus on positive fantasies and role modeling about yourself, and you forget all about your problems. At a certain point when you're able to push the subconscious negative thinking out of your mind, you'll feel better. And you'll just kind of come out of the fantasy going, whew, that felt good, and you'll want to go back there. Well, don't hang out there forever. It's just a way of, getting yourself back together. So just keep working at it until you break up the ability of the subconscious to keep sending you negative thoughts all the time. Pretty soon the daydream will override the negative thoughts from your subconscious, and they'll just break apart and disappear, and you'll develop a new viewpoint of life. Your psyche will change. Number 2 on his list is always wear a smile, even if things seem sad or depressing. The point here is that, and the Chinese used to teach this years ago, if you have a smiley outside, even though you may have problems inside, it does lead to a connection at some point where the smiley, happy persona you're carrying around does have some effect. So if you're a person wanting to keep yourself in good humor and so forth, he suggests keeping a happy smile all the time because it promotes a positive way of thinking. And you have to learn to reinforce that positive thinking. Another thing which most people don't think about, which is this 3rd golden rule of positive thinking, is your posture, your material self. Keep good posture. It's interesting how poor posture not only reflects poor thinking and poor attitudes, but when you talk to these people, they're probably making themselves sick. So keep a good posture, and that means keep your head up high, your shoulders back. It speaks well for your attitude, self-reliance, confidence, and your material self definitely has effect on how you're thinking, and vice versa. So make a point when you find yourself slumping over or, stoop shoulder or your eyes down low. You see people all the time who can't look you in the eye, or their head's always hanging down. Well, Stand up straight and look straight ahead when you do things. When you talk to someone, look them directly in the eye. I watch for this all the time. And most of the time I find that 90% of the people can't look you in